What save a horse?
Welcome in. We got CHGO Bulls pregame on deck for y'all. Bulls taking on the 4-3 Dallas Mavericks tonight. Luka, Kyrie, and former Splash brother Klay Thompson. We're going to break down the start to their seasons coming up next. I hope the smoothie was worth it.
Oh, it was.
What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome into CHGO Bulls pregame presented by Coors Light. Coming to you live from our studios here in West Loop, downtown Chicago. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck. That's Big Dave. Bow. BAWL Sports. Bow. Will the Goat Gottlieb, perfectly quaffed. Will_Gottlieb. And on the controls, the Queen, Katie Duffy. We got Bulls Mavs on deck tonight, gentlemen. First night of a back-to-back in which the Bulls will face both Western Conference finalists from last season. Mm-hmm. And this one, they are down in Dallas, taking on Luka, Kyrie, Klay, and them Mavs. And one of Big Dave's favorite players of all time from back in the day, head coach Jason Kidd.
Yes.
You excited to watch this one, Dave?
Yes.
Yes.
Gaffer's there. Kidd is there. And the Bulls are there.
Gaffer's going to be playing a lot because Derek Lively is out.
All right.
Shoulder strain or sprain or something.
Okay.
That's going to get ourselves a 12 for 12 Gafford night.
It's a classic.
Wouldn't
Gafford.
mind it.
Wouldn't mind it at all.
Love Gafford.
Yes.
Still rooting for him.
As always.
Man, was that last season when he had that crazy streak of consecutive field goals without a miss?
He failed by 3 field goals.
And it was Wilt Chamberlain's record, right? That he was chasing, and he came
32
close.
He was 32 of 32. The record was 35 of 35, and he missed the first field goal that he took of the game, and it was just like a simple putback.
Right.
And he missed it, and yeah, it just wasn't meant to be.
What's crazy though is like Wilt is like scoring, and Gafford is just like putting the ball in the basket where it's already 2 inches away from, because that's where Luka just lobbed it up to him.
Still scoring.
Lobs, dunks, layups.
It counts.
Yeah, sure
2
does.
Points. The ref did like that.
Sure do.
It's in there.
Thanks everybody for joining us tonight, hanging out in the YouTube comments. Hit that like button if you're hanging out with us. Why not? You're already here. Because Goat, you mentioned Lively. Why don't we just go ahead and take care of injury reports, because we got a bunch of names on both teams. With Derek Lively being out with that shoulder sprain, PJ Washington remains out with a sprained knee. Maxi Kleba has a hamstring that is keeping him out of tonight's game. And Dante Exum had surgery on his wrist. He is out for a while. But those main pieces I mentioned, Luka, Kyrie, Klay, all good to go. On the Bulls side of things, a couple of the minor injuries that were listed as probables are getting the green light. Josh Giddey still dealing with that non-COVID illness. Patrick Williams still dealing with the shoulder strain and a lack of passion for basketball. And Jalen Smith still dealing with some swelling in his knee. All 3 of them are active. However, Zach LaVine remains out with that adductor strain he suffered in their loss to the Brooklyn Nets this past Friday. A little bit of intel on that from KC Johnson, who was down in Dallas for this one. According to Billy, said LaVine is improving, and there is a window for his potential return beginning with tomorrow night's second night of back-to-back at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So no LaVine tonight. You have to assume that they're being cautious. And at the same time, as Bulls fans, it's kind of like, well, LaVine was playing well. Turnovers, whatever, but he was playing well. Yeah. Gotta hope he comes back soon.
Yeah, he was balling out. He was affecting winning. Even when they were losing, he was still affecting the game. I talked about the game he had where he first started showing he was injured, where he had 11 points, but he had 10 rebounds. So he's continuing to participate and try to help this team win. He's not standing on the sideline. He's not standing on the baseline. He's not making the extra pass or anything like that. He is playing straight up and down basketball. It's beautiful to watch Zach when he gets hot. It really is. Probably one of the smoothest players in the NBA when he gets going. And if he's hurt, because Zach will try to play through whatever injury he has. So, yeah, and it's good because I don't think we expected him to play on a back-to-back. But so they're taking that precaution, which is smart. Protect Zach, protect the players from themselves sometimes. And, yeah, come back, see what he can do tomorrow, and we'll check with
hopefully
it then.
Play against his former team goat, Minnesota, who the Bulls have fared well against in recent years.
Yeah, and one more thing about Zach's injury is that the other day when we were talking to Vooch after the game, he said it was the same thing that he dealt with last year when he missed 5 games. So I think every player is different. We don't know how Zach's going to be responding. We don't know what the severity of it is for Zach relative to how it was for Vooch, but that's kind of a frame of reference of how long this could potentially take, is like on the order of probably 3 to 5 games. And it doesn't seem like it's that serious of a thing. So we'll see how it goes and how it progresses. But yeah, I do expect him to probably miss tomorrow and then come back. And that's just kind of a guess, but come back for the Saturday night game.
Katie threw the question in the comments to you, our fellow Bulls fans. Who do you want to see replacing Zach minutes-wise tonight? You would assume, and we'll probably get the Bulls starting lineup here shortly, that Io will remain in that starting lineup in Zach LaVine's place, and Io in that game as a starter. Very efficient night. Really solid job.
Very.
Could be another big night for Io DeSumo. Lonzo Ball, meanwhile, we also did get an update from Billy Donovan and his pregame media availability. Again, according to Casey Johnson, Donovan said Lonzo is still wearing that splint that he's been wearing since the wrist sprain, and that the team, quote, dodged a bullet with Lonzo's wrist injury. Tomorrow, Thursday, is the 10-day mark in his reevaluation and their original setting of that 10-day timeline. With Ball in a splint, however, there's no timetable for his return. I think there was something else saying, like, if he continued to play on this and press it, it could have been a worse injury, and the one that was actually what Patrick Williams endured a couple seasons ago, Dave.
Correct. That part. Exactly what I was going to say was that was probably the biggest thing right there, is to avoid that injury that Patrick had, because it took him out for pretty much the entire season, and he came back and had the greatest game he's ever had as a Chicago Bull in Minnesota when nobody was playing, and he had 30-something points. Then we never saw it again. Thanks. But
yeah, I really feel.
Yeah, no, I've been yelling about Patrick with people, my friends today. So yeah, he's on the brain, and that's not a positive thing, because he's been ass. But Lonzo, yeah, this is the way you're gonna do it, just like with Zach. You're right at the 10-day mark. You know he's not gonna be. He wasn't playing in back-to-backs anyway. So yeah, I didn't expect to see him tonight at all. I honestly don't expect him to see him tomorrow either. I'm interested in what comes back. I'm hoping that it's nothing that's lingering, and he's able to get back out there, and they ramp him up slowly. So my question is, though, Will, how do they do that? If he gets the green light, his wrist is okay, do they put him directly back in, or do they take their time getting him back into the lineup?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think they'll just have to kind of feel it out and see how his wrist responds to whatever is involved in that ramp up process. The ramp up phrase that I know you guys love to hear.
Because I'm thinking about the knee as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the knee, I think, is at this point more like maintenance and monitoring than preventative, because it's a new, as he said, it's a new knee. But just looking this up online here, so take that with a grain of salt. Grade 2, he said it was between a grade 1 and grade 2 wrist sprain, but that if he extended it further or tried to push it and re-injured it or aggravated it, then it could have gotten to a grade 3. That could potentially result in surgery. We're looking at multiple months of recovery. But for grade 2, it says that they typically take 6 to 12 weeks, and others saying 3 to 6 weeks. So I think 10 days, typically with these, he'll be reevaluated in 10 days. Let's look at it then. Then you give him another extended timetable for him to recover, and then you do the ramp up. So this is going to be, I think, a little while longer. But it sounds like in terms of what potentially could have happened in terms of a grade 3, sounds like they've maybe dodged that. So hopefully in terms of that ramp up, it's just getting him back out in practice. Obviously monitor it. He's probably going to have it taped up, maybe wearing a brace. And they'll see how it responds to the 5-on-5 whenever he's able to get back to that point.
Shout out to our guy Forrest, representative of the Phillips family. I see in the comments saying good evening, positive vibes, game day. That's right. Also saw him in the comments the other day saying that they're down in Dallas to celebrate Julian's birthday as a fam. It was his birthday just the other day.
Shout out, man. That's
Shout
awesome.
out, Julian. Still plenty young.
Tell him to come through.
That's right.
Tell him to come hang out.
We want to chat with Julian, who with Zach being out, Lonzo being out, Io getting shoved into the starting lineup, Julian was the first one off the bench. Billy Donovan in their game on Monday night. We'll see if that's still the case again tonight. Did get confirmation here from the Bulls officially announcing their starting five. It is Io DeSumo in there alongside Giddey, Kobe, Patrick, and Vooch. Still waiting on the official starting five from the Dallas Mavericks. But in the meantime, let's shift our attention to these Dallas Mavericks, who, positing the question, have the best backcourt in the NBA.
Pretty much.
Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. We could take a look at what they've done through Dallas's first 7 games, but agree or disagree?
I agree. I mean, it's funny that the other one I would think of would be Cam Thomas and Dennis Schroeder,
which is wild,
but legitimate. But yes, worst come to worst, it's those two. I was just watching Luka throw Kyrie an alley-oop. like my God, like they're terrifying. Those guys, 2 guys that can both get 50, both get you 10 plus assists, both could shoot 10 plus threes. Like, it's really no stopping them. Kyrie, probably the best handle in the NBA. Luka with probably the most deadly step back in the NBA. Just a cold-blooded assassin out there on the floor. It's Anakin. That's who he is. And yeah, man, like I love watching him play. I had him for MVP this season. I'm not moving off of that. Everything looks kind of easy for him now that they have Klay. I'm sure we'll get into that later. But yeah, man, he's been great, and Kyrie has just been completely awesome. When you're playing under a guy like Jason Kidd, you can't help but get a little bit better, even though you're already great.
Yeah, and I think that they have a really good understanding of who they are as a team, and so you obviously have your foundational piece. You're building everything around that.
Sure.
That's obviously Luka. And then you bring in that secondary playmaking who can also play off the ball at a super high level. And that's what made, obviously, Kyrie so great with LeBron in those Cavs days, and why he's like the perfect complement to Luka right now. And then you get Klay Thompson, who can be obviously like one of the more dynamic three-point shooting floor spacers in the league. We'll see how much left in the tank he has defensively at this point in his career, but you've got great athleticism. You've got, obviously with the exception of Lively out tonight, it's like they can play a rim protector for 48 minutes and not lose anything on the offensive end. That's super valuable to them. And then you're switching, you're shooting threes, you're spacing the floor, and you're letting Luka do what he does. So I think this team, when you look at that, it's just nice to see some of these teams like really understanding where their strengths are, what their avenues are to winning games, and then building around that and putting their players in the best position possible to succeed.
Yeah, and also find it interesting that Luka has his worst average point per game against the Chicago Bulls. He's averaging, I believe, 22 a game against the Bulls. And we just saw his stats about what he's averaging right now. So I'm curious to see what that looks like, even though it felt like he got it together last year. He had a really big game against the Bulls. But, yeah, we'll see.
Katie, if you want to throw up those numbers of what Luka and Kyrie as a duo are accomplishing out of the gate for Dallas this season, Kyrie's numbers pretty similar to what he did for them last season, averaging about 24 a game. Other than a weirdly hot start behind the arc, you see he's shooting 56% from downtown on I think maybe like five or so attempts per game. But 48.5% from the field, 87 at the line, 4.5 boards, 5 assists, all very similar to Kyrie's numbers from last season. Luka, meanwhile, is efficiency wise at least struggling a little bit out of the gate. He's averaging 29 a game, which okay. Then you remember that he led the NBA in scoring last year with over 33 points per game. That's dumb MJ shit.
Yes, it is.
But you look at the shooting splits, just 40% from the field, only 32.5 from 3. He's never been an elite free throw shooter, 76, 78. That's kind of been his wheelhouse his whole career.
Which is wild.
But I mean, you look at his efficiency, he's taking 24.3 shots per game and making only 9.7 of them. It's the worst field goal percentage of Luka's career and the worst since his rookie year. And again, it's a small sample size. We're 2 weeks into the season, but interesting that the shot isn't quite there as it usually is for Luka. Maybe he'll get it going against the Bulls, but also he's averaging 2.5 assists fewer per game in these first 7 games out of the gate than he did last season. So Luka's numbers a little bit down across the board, but at no point should that lure the Bulls into any sort of like, Luka's been okay, but not great this season.
Yeah.
You got to wonder, somebody in the comments I think was asking about it earlier, like who do you task with guarding Luka? And then who do you task with guarding Kyrie? Yeah. How much switching do you want to try to see if you can get away with? who are the best matchups for those guys.
Yeah, and it's funny because Luka is also kind of having what I like call a eye test season right now. Because even though those numbers say that, if you sit there and watch the game, you wouldn't even think that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even cross your mind that Luka is struggling shooting. We just saw him hit one of the nastiest step backs against Minnesota from like 35 feet out or something insane like that. So, yeah, just looking at him play, you would not think that, which is a compliment to him and his game. So I'm very curious to see what he does against the Bulls. I'm sure he knows how he plays against the Bulls, and he doesn't want to play like that, continuing to go forward. So, yeah, very interested to see if he gets those numbers up. But, no, eyes-wise, and what the eyes are telling me is that he's still dominating out there.
Yeah, I wonder if there's maybe like a little bit of a hangover from the long playoff run, obviously getting all the way to the finals. It's a long season. But, yeah, I mean, you just look at like the numbers across the board. The efficiency obviously down, 48.7%, 49.6% the last 2 years, 40, as you mentioned. This year, only 32% on threes. Last year he was up at 38.2, which was a career high, and that obviously makes a huge difference. But even his like assists and rebounds numbers are a little bit down. His steals are a little bit down. So I wonder if there's just like we are preparing for another, run into June here. Mm-hmm. Like, do I really need to be going 100% in October and early November? Probably not. Right. So we'll see how that kind of starts to get closer to 100% as the season goes on. But at the same time, like, you also just don't expect him to shoot this poorly for the whole season. So at some point that's going to start to come back around. At least I hope it does for my fantasy team's sake.
Take a quick shout out to our friends at Coors Light here and come back and get into Klay Thompson and some other fun stuff, previewing this Bulls Mavs matchup. You want to do it? You want me to do it?
I got you covered, sir.
Okay.
Coors Light is a presenting sponsor of Wish Fest, Chicago's concert for a cause. Wish Fest is back at the Salt Shed, which is an amazing venue, this Saturday, November 9th. It is a one-night indoor music festival uplifting families battling cancer across Chicago and the Midwest, featuring a unique lineup of music and atmosphere unlike any other. And crowd favorites, Matt's People, OAR, Grammy-nominated superstar Mike Posner, who had an awesome song produced by DJ Premier, indie folk sensation Wildorado, I think Will Gottlieb rocks with them, and folk pop-up and crooner Hans Williams. I wonder if it's Hans. Hans Williams. Shout out to him.
Sorry, the only Hans is the Hans from Die Hard.
Fair. No Hans and Franz?
Actually, no, Hans Zimmer is a pretty big name.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a couple of Oscars there. Yeah, it's a thing. A big party for only $150, all-inclusive experience with 6+ hour all-you-can-drink food vendors, a truly special atmosphere with all-night music and every single dollar benefiting an amazing, amazing cause. All Wish Fest proceeds benefit Wish Forever's mission of uplifting families battling cancer, helping bring support to more than 600 families facing cancer with financial gifts totaling over $3 million. If you want your tickets, hit WishFest. That's WEISH fest.com/tickets and go there today.
Mavs starting lineup officially is Luka and Kyrie, gulp, Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson, and Big Dave's best friend, Daniel Gafford. Hey, so when you talk about this Bulls defense, which has its challenges, shall we say, trying to slow this down, the Mavericks offensively have just been kind of a middle-of-the-pack team so far.
Yeah.
Exactly 15th in offensive rating. When you look at their offensive four factors, they're middle of the pack in effective field goal percentage and offensive rebounding, not elite at either of those. They're actually near the bottom of the league. I believe they're 28th currently in free throw attempts per field goal attempts, which is a little surprising when you got Luka and Kyrie on your team. You would think they're getting to the line.
Yeah.
Not so much, at least in their first 7 games, where they are elite, as in second best in the NBA right now, is limiting those turnovers. They are second in turnover percentage at just 10.3 per game. 10.3 percentage. Whereas that has been a kind of thorn in the Bulls' side.
Sure.
Like the games in which the Bulls have stayed in the game and or won the game, they've limited their turnovers.
Yeah.
The games where they're losing, that, that rock is not taken care of. So especially against this Mavs team who do a very good job protecting the ball,
yes,
the Bulls are going to have to do the best they can to keep that turnover margin as narrow as possible.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm interested to watch also is the transition for both these teams. Both these teams like getting out in transition, but Dallas gets out in transition kind of in a controlled way. It's like a controlled transition. So it's not something that they're always dependent on, but they're always looking for.
They're only 18th in the NBA in pace of play,
exactly.
98.9 possessions per 48.
Just right there hanging around. You know what I mean? They know when to do it. It's like, it's veterans, you know what I mean, out there. So they're not the young kids running up and down, but they know when they get that turnover, they're out. And Luka understands who's around him. He knows he's got Kyrie. He knows Klay Thompson is over there in the corner. He knows Daniel Will Chamberlain Gafford is coming down the lane to get these dunks. So he understands what he has, and especially with a guy like Derek Lively. I know he's not playing tonight. Just using him as an example. But yeah, they're very controlled in their transition. And the fact that they don't turn the ball over is going to be very interesting to see, because that might force the Bulls to play a little more half court. And I don't know about that.
Especially against one of the better defensive teams in the league. I mean, I think what people kind of missed about the Mavs run last year is that they really figured it out defensively in the second half of the season. And that allowed them to hit that second gear. You know what you're going to get with the offensive star power of Luka and Kyrie, and obviously the role players, PJ Washington, Gafford, Lively kind of getting his sea legs under him at the tail end of his rookie season on the offensive end. But then you put that together with them playing really good defense, and Cleaning the Glass has them as the fourth best defense in the league. NBA stats has them at 8th. So either way, I mean, they're going to do a really good job at controlling, I think, the offensive tempo for the Bulls. And that's like an area where they just have to win, because that's their only path to winning, is running up and down, getting those threes up, and transition. So, the Mavs are not a team that turns opponents over very much. They're middle of the pack in that category. So I think that's kind of one of the signals that I'm looking at, is like, obviously, the Bulls did not turn the ball over a bunch last game and still lost, but that was really the only time. Every other game has been high turnovers, loss, low turnovers, win. And this Mavs team right in the middle, we'll see if the Bulls are going to be kind of shooting themselves in the foot in terms of self-inflicted wounds on the turnover front, or can they take care of it and actually keep themselves in this game?
And if they can continue to, find good looks behind the arc and knock down a respectable amount of them, which the Bulls have been able to do in a lot of these, first 7 games, like they're still top 10 in the league as far as 3-point attempt rate and 3-point makes out of the gate. Whereas Dallas, middle of the pack. Again, they are 11th at 3-point percentage at 36, but the Bulls are better.
Yeah.
Mavs only 20th in the NBA right now in 3-point attempt rate at 0.407. So like, if the Bulls can keep those turnovers down, there's a chance that they can shoot themselves into being in this game. Like, coming into the fourth quarter, we got a chance. If they're getting good looks and taking care of the basketball. That is another thing I am curious about, though. I do not know if tonight's the night that they reverse this trend. And shout out to our guy, Drew Stevens of the Bigs. I noticed he's the one who's been tweeting about this recently. The Bulls have yet to take a lead into halftime of any game yet this season.
Or the second quarter.
Or the second quarter.
Sounds about right. Well, they're point
differential. Who are you, the Bears?
Minus
Come
43,
on.
I think the point differential is.
Yeah, I was looking this up the other day. I'll see if I can pull it up now as I'm talking, but I believe
Fire him.
They were last in first quarter net rating. Pull this up now. Net rating in the first quarter, negative 24.1, last in the league. Second quarter, it's not much better. That is 25th in the league, minus 12.1. And then you flip it to the second half, and it's like a completely different team.
Yeah, the switch.
They just are all of a sudden like kind of good, and they have a positive net rating. They're sixth in the league with 7.9 second half net rating.
Amazing.
And as we've talked about, like, maybe that's just their pace and their relentlessness wearing teams down. But at a certain point, I wonder if they're going to start to wear themselves down. Because as much as you can prepare for that in training camp, I mean, training camp's 10 days.
Sure.
And these guys are working out over the offseason and all that stuff. But, like, I just don't know if this is a sustainable form of offense. And maybe it is, but, like, I think that's a legitimate question.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to why they were coming back from those 20-point victories against Memphis and one against the Magic, because those are both, those second half comebacks. But you can't do that all season long, like Will is saying. He's absolutely right. And a good defensive team knows how to kind of stop those things. And take away what you like to do. And so I'm curious to see what Jason Kidd and the coaching staff kind of cook up for the Bulls in the second half, because they have the same numbers that we do. So I'm curious to see what they do in that second half to kind of thwart that.
Shout out to a realtor named House in the comments, who, by the way, that's fantastic.
Well done.
Adam M. House, your realtor, whose name is House.
Sold. Phenomenal.
I wonder if he's friends with what Phil Dunphy? Is that the guy from Modern Family? The realtor?
Oh, yes.
Just
yes. Phil is hilarious.
He's saying, are we still wanting a tank? Well, that depends on who you mean by we. I think Bulls fans are still kind of scattered all across the board as far as what they're looking for this season. That's a good point. I think what we all want and are agreeing on is minutes and proof of growth from young players.
Yes.
Then around that, whether you're talking wins or losses, it depends. Some of the people who say tanking doesn't work. Some people who say, yeah, but it might. And where else are they finding a solution? Meanwhile, somebody else in the comments was saying, I hope Klay Thompson doesn't go off tonight because, yikes, the Bulls fans have some PTSD with that guy. In various ways, in various
Strong
games.
Whistle.
All of which from
nice.
his entire NBA career with the Golden State Warriors up until this season.
Yeah.
He heads to Dallas over the offseason. But, we had like setting NBA records, Klay Thompson. We had bleeding from the head and bandaged and going back in there and still raining threes on us, Klay Thompson. Take your pick, because Klay Thompson has lit the Bulls up across his career.
Yeah.
If you want to take a look at what Klay is doing so far,
I'd like to,
in his new Mavs threads compared to what he did for Golden State last season. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you like that headline up there?
New soil sink.
Pretty similar stats for Klay. Thank you very much. As far as his points per game, his shooting splits, I mean, literally almost identical. He was shooting 43% from the field for the Warriors last year. He's at 44 currently. I did some rounding. He was it's identical, 38.7% behind the arc last season. Exact same number thus far this season. Field goal attempts are a little bit down. He took nearly 15 a game last season. He's taken only 12.3 so far this season. But 3-point attempts, the Klay Thompson bread and butter, he took 9 a game last season. He's taken 8.9 so far this season. That's amazing. People wondered, will Klay Thompson fit in Dallas when that move happened? Mm-hmm. And I thought, if Klay's healthy and going back to being like a good Klay Thompson, healthy Klay Thompson, I know people threw a lot of shade at him and a lot of blame for the Warriors' struggles or poor result last season on Klay Thompson.
Sure.
And then obviously as far as their championship core, their dynasty core, he's the one who ends up being the odd man out. Steph's still there, Draymond's still there, and they're off and running. The Warriors are, but talking about finding a perfect piece to put next to Luka and Kyrie, because I think Klay Thompson is a perfect piece.
Yeah,
I was actually talking to our guy Tony Gill about this on his way out, my way in earlier today.
Shout out.
That's what Zach LaVine should be. Zach LaVine should be the Klay Thompson on these Mavericks, but for a different good team.
I think I like that. I think you're right. The reason he's a perfect fit is he's not like the numbers indicate. He's not different than what he was last year. It's just last year, only he's on that Golden State team, he's the second option. Mm-hmm. And they're looking at him to run more and to do a little bit more and to come harder off those screens, do all that stuff. And then Klay was also known during his prime as a really solid defender. He's not really that anymore. And they still were kind of dependent on him to get a little bit of that juice out of him left. He just didn't have it like that. This is the more perfect situation. He is a clear 3, and that's it. And by 3, I mean third option. He is a clear third option on the team. They're not asking him to be the defensive stopper. They're just asking him to shoot. That's all we need you to do. Be open and shoot. Look how much fun Luka is having out there when he gives him the ball and starts walking down the floor with his hands raised in the air because he knows that shot's going in. He's having a ball with Klay Thompson, and I'm very happy he has this situation. I am also curious to see on the other side of this, I'm curious to see this matchup with him and Ayo tonight, because with Klay not being able to be the guy who can get up and down the floor, but Ayo loving to be that guy, getting up and down the floor, I wouldn't be shocked if Ayo had a really big game tonight. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, I wonder about, I'm curious to kind of dig into how this team is defending, because as we talked about, their numbers are good, but it just doesn't seem like they really have the personnel to get stops.
Right.
And so obviously you have the elite rim presence, but there's nobody really on the perimeter that I'm too worried about in terms of like cutting off dribble penetration. And that's something that the Bulls struggle with. So hopefully they're able to get downhill. You brought up a really good point about Klay, though, which I think is, just important when you think about how dynamic this Mavericks offense is. This is not the Warriors where they're running those split actions. They're getting up and down. Klay's like, I think him camped out in the weak side corner on a Luka pick and roll. Like if you are guarding Klay, your job as the low man on the weak side is to come to the help line. Yeah. To get over to the rim to protect on the drive. Luka's going to beat anybody one-on-one. So they need your help there. But now you're leaving Klay Thompson, one of the great shooters in the history of the game, wide open in the corner. Like,
it's bold strategy.
There's just like, how do you defend that? And I don't think there's a good answer.
Yeah, it's not. And we're going to find that out tonight.
And it's kind of like in a similar sense what briefly they had with KD, Harden, Kyrie in Brooklyn, and then now they have in KD and Booker in Phoenix. It's like when you have two players of that caliber and then you add in a third, like what? Who are you stopping?
Pick your poison, man.
Who are you stopping?
Pick your poison.
Ghost Miko, in reference to one of those Klay Thompson barrages against the Bulls, in the comments saying, LOL, I remember that game. It was on my birthday. Good thing I had a case of beer. Haha, SMH. Hopefully it was good beer. And hopefully it was like a case of beer.
Hopefully it was a cold case, of course.
Hey,
right.
Let's go.
Bracing your chills.
Shout out to our guy, French Bulls TV, who said, are the Bulls capable of losing to Brooklyn and Utah and then beating Dallas? Absolutely. Unbelievable.
That's so true.
100% right.
100% accurate.
100% right.
Only the one and only.
Only the one and only.
That's right.
Boom,
thank you all for joining us for pregame. Excited to watch this game and see what happens. Bulls trying to figure out a way to slow down Luka, Kyrie, and the defending Western Conference champion, Dallas Mavericks. Good luck stopping Daniel Gafford at the rim.
Daniel Gafford.
Watch your head, Vooch.
Bow. 12 for 12. 15 blocks. In your face.
We will be right back here for live post-game following Bulls Mavs from our studios here in West Loop. I think Uncle Will's going to call in and join us for a part of that post-game show as well. Get his thoughts on the game. Hit that like button on your way out if you haven't done it yet. I don't know how many times Katie needs to kindly remind you.
A lot, apparently. I mean, look, I can see the 40-something of you that are slacking. I see you.
She sees you.
Damn.
She sees you.
Do it.
That's right.
Just like your seats on the Game Time app. For Katie, Goat, and Big Dave, Peck, thanks for watching pregame. We'll see you for postgame. See you, Red. Be good.
Peace.